You wake up. Before you even reach for your phone, you do what you trained yourself to do. You close your eyes. You breathe. You start to visualize the house, the car, the number in your bank account, the version of yourself you're working toward. You feel gratitude in advance. You say your affirmations out loud. You close the ritual with that quiet sense that today is going to be different, and then the day starts. The meeting that didn't go the way you planned. The bill that showed up at the worst time. The message that never came. The opportunity that passed without knocking. And you go to sleep thinking the exact same thing you thought yesterday. Why isn't this working for me? If you're watching this video, you're probably not someone who gave up. You're the opposite. Someone who tried so hard that you started to suspect the problem isn't the effort. And that suspicion, I need to tell you, is the most intelligent thing you've felt in a long time. Because today we're going to talk about something the biggest names in personal development rarely admit out loud: the practice of manifestation. Done the way most people do it, doesn't just fail to work. It actively works against you. You are not broken. The tool is being used wrong. And the difference between those two sentences is the difference between a lifetime of trying and actual transformation. But before we go further, and this matters, if you found this video without watching the earlier episodes in this series, especially the ones on rebuilding identity after loss and why gratitude alone won't make you wealthy, I'd strongly encourage you to pause right now and go watch those first. Every episode in this series was built as a step. Skipping steps here is like trying to run a race starting at mile 3. You might finish, but you'll be fighting twice as hard with half the context. Links are in the description. The Quantum Coach has a sequence, and you deserve the full journey. Now, let's get into what nobody told you. The Quantum Architect welcomes all passengers aboard for this conversation. Carl Jung is here, lantern pointed at what lives in the shadows. Alan Watts, with that grin of someone who spotted the trap long before anyone else did. Jordan Peterson, bringing neuroscience to places that hurt but heal. Carl Rogers, with the precise gentleness of someone who truly knows how to listen. Joe Dispenza, whose research on the brain and manifestation is the starting point of this entire conversation, and who would be the first to agree that most people are using his techniques completely wrong. And Hélio Couto, helping us understand what the quantum field actually registers when you visualize. The loop works like this. You learn that you need to visualize what you want. You visualize. Nothing happens. You visualize harder. Still nothing. You conclude you're not doing it right. You visualize even harder. Nothing. You conclude you don't deserve it. You visualize from a place of pain, trying to prove to yourself that you do deserve it. And without realizing it, you've built the most counterproductive circuit possible. Jung was the first to name this mechanism with clinical precision. Fantasy, when it substitutes for integrated action, isn't a tool for creation. It's a pressure valve. The unconscious uses visualization to release psychic tension around desire, which paradoxically reduces the real urgency for change. In plain English, when you visualize intensely without integrating the shadow, without working through the beliefs that contradict what you want, your nervous system interprets the need as partially satisfied, and it relaxes. Not toward the result, away from it. This isn't a character flaw. It's psychic architecture working exactly as designed. Alan Watts put it in a way that, if you slow down and really hear it, will shift your entire axis. When you want something with urgency, you are broadcasting the message that you don't have it. That's not metaphor. That's frequency. The internal state that sustains anxious desire is the exact opposite of the internal state that creates attraction. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you are, energetically, in the moment you send the signal. And here's the irony the personal development industry buries under beautiful branding. Most people visualize from the same frequency as the fear of not having. That means visualization, as most people practice it, is often a form of praying intensely for the absence of what you want. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. This chapter is the opening. The deeper conversation starts now. Let's put some flesh on what we just discussed. Because theory without personal recognition is just something else to memorize and forget. What you're about to hear are 3 real patterns. You might recognize yourself in one of them or all 3. The first phase, visualization as escape. Ashley is 32, lives in Austin, and for 2 years she woke up at 5:30 a.m. to do her morning ritual. She visualized the house she wanted, the business she wanted to launch, the financial freedom she'd been chasing since her mid-20s. She was disciplined. She was consistent. By every external measure, she was a model practitioner. And at the same time, she never sent the email to the potential client, never filed the LLC, never scheduled the discovery call. Every time the anxiety of real action showed up, she went back to the ritual. The ritual had become, without her realizing it, a painkiller, a way of feeling like she was working toward the goal without having to face the actual discomfort of change. Carl Rogers would call this incongruence, the gap between the ideal self, the version she was visualizing, and the real self, the person still operating from the fear of trying and failing. And here's the point Rogers always returned to. You cannot genuinely create from a place of self-rejection. Unconditional self-acceptance isn't a destination, it's the starting point. Ashley's visualization wasn't connected to any real internal shift. It was a beautiful poster hung in front of a cracked wall. As long as the wall stays cracked, the poster doesn't change what's behind it. The second phase, the urgency that repels. Marcus had read every book, watched every video. He could recite Dispenza on neuroplasticity from memory, explain heart coherence, articulate the concept of morphic fields. Intellectually, he was a master. In practice, he'd been in the same place for 3 years. What nobody had told Marcus is that there's a fundamental difference between knowing a concept and embodying it. And sometimes, the more you know about manifestation, the harder it is to practice correctly, because the ego finds in intellectualization a new way to avoid real transformation. Alan Watts had a word for this state: the striver, the person who tries so intensely to relax that they never actually relax, who tries so intensely to attract that the very trying becomes the evidence of lack. Marcus visualized with such force that any outside observer could feel the desperation underneath the intention. And the field, whether you approach this through quantum physics or conventional neuroscience, doesn't record the declared intention. It records the actual emotional state. Hélio Couto has always been direct about this. You don't emit what you ask for. You emit what you feel while asking. And when what you feel is fear, dressed up as faith, the field returns fear, not as punishment, as resonance. The third phase, the identity that can't hold the result, and then there's Diana, who actually manifests. Things arrive. Money shows up, the opportunity emerges, the relationship advances, and then, within weeks or months, everything resets to the previous level. As if there's an invisible thermostat that adjusts the temperature of life back to the familiar setting. Jordan Peterson would name this without softening it. The problem isn't creating the result. It's sustaining it. Diana's identity was built inside an environment of scarcity, of grinding, of proving yourself. When abundance arrives, it doesn't match who she believes she is at the deepest level. And the nervous system, which is always loyal to identity, not to desire, starts working to restore the familiar balance. This is exactly what Dispenza documents in his research. Most people have genuine spiritual and transformative experiences, but can't sustain the change because the personality, built from emotional memories of the past, pulls everything back. The manifestation worked. The identity wasn't ready to receive it. Simple exercise. The Loop Journal. Take paper and a pen. Write in 3 columns. Column 1, what you visualize or desire most intensely. Column 2, how your body actually feels while you visualize. Be brutally honest. Is it anxiety, urgency, Fear of not having it? Column 3. What would actually change in your life if you got what you want? What would you lose? What relationships would shift? What version of yourself would have to die? There's no right answer. This exercise isn't here to judge you. It's here to make visible what's operating beneath the visualization. You might discover you visualize from genuine faith, or you might discover your entire practice is built on the shifting sand of fear. Either way, you'll know. And knowing is already halfway out. There's a study Jordan Peterson cites often that, once you understand what it reveals, fundamentally changes how you think about visualization. It's Gabrielle Oettingen's research on positive thinking and real-world outcomes. Oettingen, a psychology professor at NYU, spent a decade studying the effect of positive thinking on measurable results: exam performance, weight loss, job searches, post-surgical recovery. What she found was uncomfortable for the self-help industry. The more vividly people visualized positive outcomes without working through real obstacles, the less likely they were to achieve their goals. The brain, when it experiences positive fantasy, interprets the work as partially done, and it reduces the energy available for actual action. This doesn't mean visualization is useless. It means visualization in isolation, without emotional integration and without mapping real obstacles, is counterproductive. And here Peterson steps in with an observation that sounds harsh but is actually liberating. Your nervous system is not naive. It knows when you're performing. When you practice a fantasy that isn't connected to your real internal state, you're spending neural energy that could be building something true. Joe Dispenza explains the same phenomenon from a different angle. Visualization works, according to his neuroimaging research, when it activates the same neural patterns that the real experience would activate. That requires emotional precision. It's not enough to imagine the house. You need to be in the emotional state of someone who already lives there. And that state is not accessible from anxiety or fear. It's only accessible from a regulated nervous system. Here's the piece most people never receive. You cannot access the emotional state of abundance while your nervous system is in survival mode. And the vast majority of people practice manifestation from a body that is chronically in survival mode. Elevated cortisol, active threat response, narrow focus on what's missing. In neuroscience terms, the prefrontal cortex, responsible for creative thinking, long-term vision, and the ability to imagine possible futures, is literally deactivated when the autonomic nervous system is in alert state. You physically cannot visualize with creative precision when you're stressed. The brain is too busy surviving to create. Think about the last time you were really anxious. Maybe it was a financial crisis, a relationship falling apart, a health scare. Could you think clearly? Could you imagine expansive futures? Most people can't even remember what they had for breakfast in those moments. That's not weakness. That's biology. And you can't transcend biology by wanting hard enough. Hélio Couto frames this in terms of frequency. Every emotional state has a vibrational signature. When you're in survival mode, you're broadcasting a specific frequency, and that frequency attracts experiences that confirm the survival state. It's not punishment. It's physics. The same reason a radio tuned to one station doesn't pick up another. You can only receive what you're currently transmitting. And here's the information that will change your practice permanently. Your frequency is not determined by what you think. It's determined by what you feel in the body. Alan Watts closed this loop with characteristic precision. He observed that most people spend their lives trying to get the experience of being alive. They're so busy chasing the feeling they want to have that they never inhabit the feeling they actually have. And the field, whether you approach this as quantum physics, neuroscience, or simple human experience, can only work with what you're being right now, not what you're planning to become. Before we move to the next chapter, and what comes next are real transformation stories that will show you exactly what the way out looks like in practice, I want to leave you with one question to carry. When you visualize, are you being the person who already has it? Or are you being the person who needs it so badly that the urgency bleeds through everything? That's not rhetorical. That's the diagnosis. If this video is landing somewhere real for you, share it with someone you know who is stuck in the loop. Sometimes the biggest act of manifestation is putting the right information in the right hands. There's a common thread in every real transformation story we've collected throughout this series. It's not an intellectual insight. It's not a book that changed everything. It's not even a specific ritual. It's a moment of brutal honesty with yourself. That instant when someone stops visualizing what they want and starts seeing what they actually are. 3 stories, names changed, patterns entirely real. The turning point of Sarah was 38 and had been practicing manifestation for 6 years. Vision board on the wall, affirmations in the bathroom mirror, guided meditations every morning before her kids woke up, and at the same time, mounting credit card debt, a marriage quietly falling apart, and a growing sense that the universe had somehow singled her out for disappointment. Her turning point came from an unexpected place, a therapy session where her therapist simply asked how her body felt when she visualized. Sarah was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Scared. I feel scared that it won't work. Scared that I don't deserve it. Scared that if it does work, I'll lose something else." That moment was the real beginning of her transformation. Not because she found a new ritual or a better technique, but because she stopped visualizing and started feeling what was underneath the visualization. Carl Rogers would call this finding the real organism beneath the constructed self. Rogers believed that most human suffering comes from the distance between what a person actually feels and what they believe they should feel, and that real healing always begins with acceptance of what is, not projection of what should be. Sarah spent the following weeks doing something that looked radically different from manifestation, simply observing her real emotions, without judgment, without urgency to change them, without trying to transmute them into something more spiritual. And it was in that acceptance, paradoxically, that something started to move. 6 months later, she didn't have the dream house, but she'd paid off to credit cards, renegotiated her freelance contracts, and for the first time in years, woke up without the feeling of owing the universe something. The turning point of James is an engineer in Seattle, constitutionally skeptical of anything that sounds like spirituality. He came to personal development through the neuroscience door. Read Dispenza as science, not self-help. And that's exactly what made him fall into the trap in a different way. James understood the mechanism intellectually but couldn't feel it. So he started forcing the emotion. He'd visualize and try to manufacture the feeling of gratitude, of abundance, of peace. It was, in practice, an emotional performance for an imaginary audience he thought of as the universe. And yes, he felt slightly ridiculous. But he kept going, because the framework made logical sense. His turning point came when he read Jung for the first time, specifically the idea that the unconscious is not fooled, that what you present consciously and what you emit unconsciously are frequently opposites, and that the more energy you spend building the performance, the less remains for real transformation. James stopped his practice for 3 weeks, completely no meditation, no visualization, no affirmations. And in those 3 weeks, he started observing what happened naturally in his body when he thought about money, about success, about prosperity. What he found wasn't pretty tightness in the chest, shallow breathing, an internal voice that sounded disturbingly like his father's saying that money doesn't grow on trees and people like us don't get to play that game. That material, operating underneath 7 years of manifestation practices, was the actual starting point. Not the result he wanted to create, but the internal state that was blocking any creation. Peterson has a line that James printed and put on his desk: "You cannot lie to the part of yourself that knows the truth." And the part of James that knew the truth knew exactly what was underneath every visualization. The real work began when he stopped trying to hide it from his own unconscious. The turning point of Rachel's story is the shortest and maybe the most revealing. She had never formally practiced manifestation, didn't know Dispenza, no vision board, no morning ritual. But at some point in her life, she started creating results that other people called impossible, not by explicit intention, but through a quality of presence she couldn't have named if you asked her. When people asked how she did it, Rachel said something simple. I don't spend a lot of time asking for things. I just start moving like they're already real. I don't fake it. I don't visualize. I just start being it. This is precisely what Dispenza calls being before having, and what Hélio Couto describes as the collapse of the wave function, the moment when the observer and the observed become the same. Rachel did this instinctively because she'd never been taught to do it differently. Her absence of formal practice was, paradoxically, the reason. Her practice was perfect. The common thread across these three stories isn't the method, it's honesty. It's the moment when each person stopped asking the right question in the wrong way. How do I get what I want? And started asking the wrong question in the right way. Who am I being while I want it? We've reached the point where theory becomes tool. And before presenting the main exercise of this episode, I want to give you a morning protocol specifically designed for the moment you wake up, because that's when your nervous system is most receptive. Your prefrontal cortex hasn't yet been hijacked by the day's agenda, and your unconscious just spent 8 hours processing. The Honest Morning Protocol: 7 minutes when you wake up, before you reach for your phone, before you get out of bed, before any visualization or affirmation. Follow this sequence. Minute 1, simply observe. No judgment, no intention. How is the body? Where is there tension? What's the emotional tone you're waking up with? Is it anxiety, neutrality, peace, dread? Don't try to change anything yet. Just observe it like a scientist studying your own system. You wouldn't blame a weather instrument for recording a storm. Minutes 2 and 3, breathe consciously. 6 seconds in, 2-second pause, 6 seconds out. This activates the parasympathetic nervous system and begins shifting the body from survival mode to creation mode. Dispenza documents that 6 complete cycles of coherent breathing are enough to measurably alter heart rate variability. You're literally changing the frequency of the field you're broadcasting. 6 breaths, that's the entry fee. Minutes 4 and 5. Ask a simple question and wait for the answer that comes from the body, not the mind. The question is this: who am I today, independent of what I need to create? This isn't rhetorical. It's an invitation for the real organism, the one Rogers identified as the source of all genuine wisdom, to show up before the ego's agenda takes over. Minute 6. From the state that emerged, not the state you wish you had, but the real state that's actually present, allow an intention for the day to surface. Don't force it. If abundance comes, let it come. If resistance comes, let that come too. The intention born from an honest state has a coherence that no manufactured affirmation can replicate. Minute 7. Minimal physical movement. 3 conscious stretches, breathing into each one. This anchors the intention in the body, not just the mind. Hélio Couto has consistently emphasized that frequency not embodied in the body isn't being broadcast. It's just being thought. And thought without the body is a weak signal. This is the protocol that separates manifestation as genuine practice from manifestation as anxious performance. And it fits inside 7 minutes before your first cup of coffee. The Power Exercise Protocol of Real Presence: 21 days. This exercise is structured across 3 7-day weeks. Each week works a different layer of the empty manifestation loop. Week 1. The diagnosis days 1 to 7 for 7 days. You observe without changing. Every time you practice any form of manifestation, visualization, affirmation, declared gratitude, add one step before, 30 seconds of honest internal observation. How is your body right now? What's actually present emotionally? Write it in one word or short phrase in your journal. Don't judge what you find, just record it. By the end of 7 days, you'll have a clear map of the real state from which you practice. Americans are famously solution-oriented. We want to skip the diagnosis and go straight to the fix. Resist that impulse here. This map is more valuable than any technique you'll learn in the next 5 years. You can't navigate out of a building you refuse to look at. Week 2, the integration days 8 to 14 with your Week 1 map in hand. Identify the emotion that appeared most frequently and that you sense is working against what you want to create. Not necessarily the most intense, the most persistent. Dedicate 5 minutes per day to sitting with that emotion without trying to transform it. Carl Rogers called this being with what is. Jung called it integrating the shadow. Dispenza calls it releasing the emotional memory. The name doesn't matter. What matters is that you stop treating this emotion as an enemy and start treating it as information. At the end of each session, write a response to this question. What belief about myself does this emotion protect? Don't answer with your head. Sit with your body and wait. In a culture that medicated, suppressed, and productivity hacked its way through every uncomfortable feeling, this 5 minutes a day of simply sitting with what's there will feel countercultural. It is. That's the point. Week 3, the new frequency days 15 to 21 now, and only now, you practice visualization. But with one fundamental shift. Before visualizing what you want to have, you visualize who you need to be for that result to feel natural, not forced, not conquered against resistance. Natural, like water finding its way downhill. Spend the first 3 minutes of each session being that person, not thinking about them, being them, feeling in the body how they breathe, how they carry themselves, what they feel when they wake up. And then, from that state, let the result appear, don't force it. Invite it. The difference between forcing and inviting is the difference between pushing a door and opening it. By the end of 21 days, your life won't be transformed. But something far more important will be the quality of the state from which you create your life. And that is the only place where real change begins. The mantra for this episode, say this out loud. Preferably in the morning after the honest morning protocol. I don't chase what I want. I become who attracts what I need. My frequency is my practice. My presence is my manifestation. I am here, now, whole, and that is enough to begin. Before we close, one final piece the passengers of this coach wanted to leave with you. The next video in this series goes directly into the mechanism that makes you sabotage what you build, not weakness, not lack of discipline. The ego doing exactly what it was programmed to do. Protect the known identity from any threat, including the threat of growing beyond what you were taught was possible for someone like you. If you arrived at the end of this video, feeling something open inside, hold on to that thread. The next chapter explains why a part of you is going to try to let go of it, and exactly what to do when that happens. Share this video with someone you know who is stuck in the loop, who visualizes every day and still can't figure out why nothing changes. Sometimes what's missing isn't another technique. It's the courage to look at what's underneath all the techniques. Leave a comment telling me which of the 3 faces of the trap you recognized in yourself. There's no embarrassing answer. There's only the beginning. I am the quantum architect, and you didn't end up here by accident.